Okay, folks, so we're going to reconvene the meeting. Those of you that attended the ceremony out front, thank you for being there. It was a privilege and honor to participate in that, and I think our scouts did a very, very commendable job, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more from them in the future, too. All right, a little bit of housekeeping. There are openings on the following committees: Audit Committee, Bike Path Committee, Business Development Commission, Carver Cultural Council, Carver Housing Authority, a state representative member, Commission on Disability, Earth Removal Committee, a growers representative, Finance Committee, Local Housing Partnership Committee, Marcus Atwood Trustees, Old Colony Regional Voc Tech School Committee, there are 2 positions available there, and Town Building Study Committee. Please contact the Selectmen's office for an application if you're interested in that. Donations to the food pantry can be made at the Council on Aging or the public library. There's still a need for that. That probably will never disappear, so keep being as generous as you possibly can. First up, we have police personnel update from Chief Dufley. Chief? Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. I have just a few documents.
Thank you.
Well said, Chief. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. The documents I gave to the selectmen are some organizational charts that I've developed. One that shows the current staffing of the police department, and the second one that shows where I think we should be heading as far as staffing needs for the police department. I have more copies up here if anybody's interested. They're certainly welcome to grab one.
You want to give the audience an opportunity to pick up a handout if they want one, or? That way they can follow along and see what's going on.
Hope I brought enough. I gotta get used to planning for these size crowds.
If not, they will tar and feather you and let you know.
I think the press is looking for, is that lady the press, the young lady?
Let's double PLM. There should be plenty of needed photocopies.
She got one? Okay.
Again, good evening, and thank you for having me. I've been in my office as chief for a little over a month, and in that time I've had some time to look around and see how things are from a different point of view than I've had previously. And I'd like to just take this opportunity to speak to you a little bit about the direction that I think the police department needs to move forward in so that we can provide better police services to the town of Carver. So as new chief, I've been asked to prepare a plan as how I'd improve the department. As such, I'd like to talk to you tonight about my thoughts and ideas on the matter. First, as we know, as just about every department, the police department is understaffed. And I've started to develop a plan that could be phased in to bring the department up to its proper staffing levels. This plan could be timed according to the town's ability to absorb the cost. And this increased staffing level would enhance an already secure community's ability to respond to future law enforcement challenges. First, let me say this about this department. It's currently staffed with 13 professional and experienced police officers. These men and women work diligently every day to provide quality police service to the citizens of Carver. Working as a team and with help from the community, their efforts have helped to improve the quality of life in town. The first organizational chart shows how the current staff is assigned. We have a sergeant assigned to each shift, days, evenings, and midnights, with 2 or 3 patrolmen working directly under those sergeants. Directly above the sergeants is the administrative sergeant. And due to a recent negotiation between Chief Mix and the police union, we've been able to fill a court officer who will be responsible for handling court issues and some detective work. In addition, we are actively looking to bring on 1 more full-time police officer to fill the opening created by my promotion. This will bring our number to 14 police officers. Over the past several years, Attritional losses combined with a poor economy have caused the number of officers to decline from 18 to the current level. With 2 officers out injured and the remainder of the force dedicated to patrol functions, the department is in a reactive rather than proactive mode of policing. By this I mean officers receive calls, respond, either make an arrest, take a report, or begin an investigation. If an investigation is started, it is followed up by the patrolman on shift, and sometimes on overtime after the shift, but all without the benefit of a dedicated detective. The patrol function is curtailed by the need for the patrol officer to also perform the duties of the detective. This leaves little time for the patrol officer to actually patrol and be a visible presence in the community. Fortunately, the town of Carver is a relatively safe and secure community. It has its average amount of calls for domestic disturbances, disturbing the peace, speeding vehicles, motor vehicle accidents, etc. But as with the rest of the state and the country, drug abuse is a big problem and is a cancer that consumes a great deal of police resources. The problem is the root cause of other issues, such as the breaking and entering of homes and vehicles to be able to fund the drug need, and the accidental overdoses that come with stronger and stronger versions of these drugs. I've spoken a little bit about where the department is today and some of the problems that it deals with every day. Now I would like to speak a bit about how we might improve. Let me say that my comments and ideas are those of a police officer with nearly 19 years of experience. I'm not a financier. I've not been taught or schooled in the finance ways or how we pay for all this, but my ideas are based on my training as a police officer and where I see that we need to go. I do understand that economically we're still in a tough spot. I believe that the most important improvement that we could be making to the department right now would be to increase the number of police officers, so in an effort to become a more proactive force. I would recommend a plan to grow the department to 20 police officers. This is possible by funding the 3 currently unfunded positions and creating 2 new positions. Many other local communities operate with such numbers. The town of East Bridgewater, which has a population of 14,000, has 21 full-time police officers. The town of Hanson, which has a population of 9,800 people, has 20 full-time officers. Increasing the size of the police force would augment our patrol force with 1 or 2 detectives who would be able to focus serious attention on the drug problem. Detectives in plain clothes who can concentrate on conducting a good drug investigation are much more likely to arrest a drug dealer than an officer in a uniform with a black and white police cruiser. Though we have had several good drug arrests come from our uniform officers, we would be able to make more of these type of arrests with 1 or 2 detectives. These detectives would also free up patrol officers to do patrol work, such as dealing with quality of life issues, such as becoming more proactive with traffic issues. Additionally, more officers would allow for 1 or 2 school resource officers to be present in the schools. We have been posting a patrol officer every morning at the elementary school as the students arrive. A school resource officer would provide an officer at that school all day, thus providing for greater security and for quicker response in the event of a problem. An armed police officer may be just the deterrent that is needed to prevent the occurrence of a bad situation. Also, a police officer in the school can help to develop and encourage a relationship between the kids and the police. By having someone from the police department that the kids can trust and know, they will have a resource to go to in the event of that something's bothering them or they feel there's an unsafe situation developing. More than one school disaster has been averted by students with concerns and a school resource officer who was able to act on those concerns. Another reason to start planning to increase the size of the department is to prepare for the future. Within 11 years, most of the senior police officers working today, myself included, will be eligible for retirement. Good police officers are created by combining the eagerness and enthusiasm of a young recruit with years of street knowledge. This knowledge comes from the actual calls the officer handles and from the seasoned veterans that the officer works with. Investigators become good by learning to read and understand human beings. This type of learning occurs over time. A staggered approach to bringing new officers on board will help to create the seasoned officers that will be needed to take over this department when the time comes. As you can see on the organizational chart, the second one that I provided, a department with 20 officers would allow for the filling of a couple of detectives and school resource officers while also properly staffing the patrol section. Those boxes on that second flow chart that are in red indicate proposed new offices. The ones in blue indicate the current staffing level. It is my hope that what I've said tonight will prompt further discussion on how to improve on the police services we provide. My proposal is a plan for the future. It is, in my professional opinion, where we should be headed. The pace at which we move should be dictated by the financial ability of the town. I know and I'm aware that there are many valid and real competing needs for the limited funds of the town, and funding these changes may be difficult. I can say that however we choose to move forward, and at whatever pace, the Carver Police Department will continue to provide excellent police services to the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Questions from the board? Anyone want to step forward?
Dick,
Dick,
go
you got
first.
something?
I think more comments. I support the direction you're going in, Mark, because I have grandkids in town in the schools, and I have a granddaughter who's had a great deal of problem with this drug scene. And I think we've gone, since I was a selectman, from 18, as you said, officers down to active 14 now. And I actually would have hoped that we went up instead of down. So my only concern is how are we going to go about this? And we need to be working with the finance committee and the town accountant and a lot of different people to work something together so we can progress. And I don't know how fast. Maybe we need to progress to this immediately, and maybe we need to progress to this over a period of moves or movements. I don't know. But anyway, I support where you're going and your concerns and the officers.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. As I said, I'm not a financier. I'm only new to this job, and I think that whatever is appropriate, whatever departments that we need to work together to do that, I would be more than willing to work with them. I think that this can be a staggered approach. It doesn't have to be an immediate approach, but it's certainly something we need to make a plan and have a long-term plan. As far as how quickly we can accomplish that goal, I'd like to do so without putting any undue burden on the taxpayers, but have a plan to move forward.
Anybody else? Comments? Jack?
I'd rather move quicker rather than slower on something like this. I've been around for a long time, participating in the town, and when we first hired Artie Parker, who was before Mike Mix, we had talked of having a deputy chief or a lieutenant then, and I see that you have that in here. You know, I think the time has come as now for that. I think the school resource officers would be invaluable to your police department. I know that you put about the security, that would be an added benefit, but the primary function of them would be their interaction with the students, because in every town across America, there's all sorts of drug activity. Probably some that you're not even aware of, but, you know, it could come to light because of their interaction and their confidence in the police officer. We're gonna have to make some tough decisions. We're gonna have to sit down, we can't do it tonight, but we need to move forward on this. You have 3 unfunded positions. Those were funded at one time. How they ever became unfunded. And we had at least 1 school resource officer before. How that got cut out, I don't know, but I think now with what happened down in Connecticut, we could see the value of having a school resource officer. You have my full support and my dedication to helping you get these positions filled sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Mr. Freeney.
Sarah?
Chief, I think you know that we all know you need new officers, and we've talked about this on a number of occasions. I think that it's probably not a good idea for us to do this sooner rather than later, because there's no money right now. The argument could be made that if we don't get the school soon, we may be needing twice that many officers. There are departments who are suffering as well, you know, as you pointed out, the DPW's down 2 people, the school's lost over 50 teachers the past few years. It's a tough call, and I like the idea of a plan phased in over time. Maybe somehow we can work something in the budget, but I just don't see it happening overnight. But of course, I'm supportive of getting the police department to where we all think it should be.
Thank you.
So,
I do recognize that many departments have suffered losses of people, and certainly that's a symptom of the economy, and we need to move forward on that. And I think having a plan, whether it be not depending on a time frame, but having a plan to move forward appropriately at the proper speed is important.
Ms. Moreau?
Yeah, no, I think I've said it on numerous occasions that I support increasing the staff in the police department, because I consider it, that and the fire, the security of the town, one of our #1 priorities. But I do agree that we need to look at it from the financial perspective, you know, in a grand scheme of things, so, and I know that you're aware of that. So between working with the various departments and figure out where we can come up with the money, the master plan hopefully is gonna be revisited, and between the building study committee, we can all come together and lay out these plans, so it happens, not this year, but maybe going into next year with the budget, you know, while we do the budget plans.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Maroney, I appreciate that.
Thank you for putting the time into this.
Thank you, and I'm going to continue to put time and effort into it. I look forward to working with the Board of Selectmen, with the Finance Committee, and with all the committees, and to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Purcell, is there anything you would like to add to this?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman. First, is there a consensus view? I'm not saying to what extent or what degree. Is there a consensus view that there's a manpower need in the police department?
I think what you heard from the members of the board tonight, it sounded to me like they were pretty much unified in endorsing the chief's needs.
So the question is, how much, how soon, how far, in the broader context. An immediate address to this, I'm afraid would probably not be possible under the existing property tax levy. So an immediate approach, may necessitate some initiatives outside the property tax levy. A phased-in approach is something that could be worked on as well. A phased-in approach, however, I think, requires, sometime soon, some resolve, that we're serious about supplementing our present workforce in the police department. The issue here, and it is a growing cancer, as the chief had suggested. The issue here is the drug problem. It's prevalent in all society, but it seems to be getting more acute in Carver. I think you all know that. You've all been telling me that since I've been here. So, the big hit requires a kind of a monumental political challenge if you want to address it all at once. Okay, that's the price of the war on drugs. A phased-in approach requires resolve, not a simple. How do I say this without sounding insulting? I don't mean to be insulting when I say rather than lip service. It takes real resolve, not lip service, at this stage, for us to advance, the planning to the next step or two, so.
Well, maybe we should put it out to the citizens and let them decide. It's their money, what their priorities are.
In my professional opinion, Mr. Chairman, while we seem to be, by our statistical profile, a relatively safe community, we do see those signs of stress. And when I look at the manpower levels right now, and, you know, our obligation to staff on a 24/7 basis, we're 1 or 2 workplace injuries away from some really serious problems.
Oh, absolutely. I think by federal standards, we should have
Yeah.
23 or 24 officers on our department based on our population, never mind 20. So I think what the chief has done is he's really, you know, dissected all of the information around to see what he needs to make the department run not just in a reactive manner, but also a proactive manner. And maybe we can get a handle on the scourge that's now running through our community with this drug abuse. So I think he's went overboard in trying to minimizing the impact that he's presenting to the town. So, yes, Dick?
I hate for us to leave this without
Right,
actually putting the next step in place. How do we, you know, and we always say, oh, well, let's put a committee together. Well, I don't want to be the one that says that. But what are we gonna do for our next step? How are we gonna put what the chief is asking for or feels is a need, which we feel is a need, into a plan?
I think we start with working it into the budget, the upcoming budget. I mean, even that's going to take some kind of commitment. It's more money, but
But you have to
There it
get a
is.
plan together with each component and the costs and things, and
Mhm.
that has to become a presentation, you know, for us, our finance committee and us,
And I-
and all those to work with.
And I think that's something you could do, isn't it, Chief?
Yes, I can work on moving forward and presenting a budget that would show
Okay.
the expenses we'd need to move forward in both a phased approach and what it would cost to move forward. However we choose, I can put those numbers together, yes.
Make it like a multiple choice, A, B, C, D
Jeez.
plan.
I can do that, yes.
Can't tell I was a teacher.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is a nice presentation, and you've shown us how on-demand we really are. But it's not reflected in here, and I know you have to be cautious because of deployment of personnel, is the impact of officers out injured on duty. You know, that seriously undermines and diminishes this. You know, at one point in time, a year or two ago, I think we had 5, 6, or 7 officers out injured on duty. I mean, it was ridiculous what we had for people to go and manage the town. That's why I think, you know, maybe my fellow selectmen don't agree with me, but we really need to attack this right now. Looking at next year's budget puts it off for a whole year. What's gonna happen in a year's time? You know, this is a serious, serious matter. We have to really dig our heels in and come up with some sort of a solution. I'd say let's put something on next week's agenda that we can think about ways that we can build up the police department the way it needs to be built up.
Something else to consider too, folks, is that if you put this off till next year in budgets, and you start the process then, you're talking about 18 months from the time you know, do your hiring, all your backgrounds and everything that goes into that, until you get somebody into the academy, if you can get seats, and until they're able to come out and be full-fledged members of the department. I mean, you could be talking 2 years before you're putting somebody on the street that's totally effective. So, I mean, I kind of agree with the vice chairman here. We need to do something sooner rather than later on this.
Well, I think the next step is for Mike, sorry, Mark, for Mark to come back, slip of the tongue, right? For Mark to come back with the 2 different scenarios as a start, and then we bring in the finance committee and to discuss and work with him to see if we can kind of finagle this before the next budget. I wasn't saying necessarily wait till the next budget, but I do agree with Sarah that we have to look at it from the financial end of it before we just jump and say, let's do
I
it.
think the chief's given us a plan, and now it's on our laps.
Yeah.
You know, what's the pension assessment gonna be next year? What if it goes up $1 million? That wipes out even any future plans at all for the police department. We really have to take this seriously. You know, it's, like Dick said, he has a granddaughter in it. My daughter works at a rehab center, and there's preteens coming in there to be go through the treatment center because they're addicted to heroin and everything else. That's not saying they're from Carver, but it could happen in Carver. It might be happening in Carver. You're not gonna know about it. This is a serious, serious matter that we really need to address now.
Mr. Chairman, something I won't, make a public utterance on, statistics because, it is an open meeting and deployment of security personnel and the extent of some problems is really not, shouldn't be talked about openly. But I do want to give you some assurance that, this wasn't a conclusion in search of a problem statement. When we talk about, the drug issue, that is the driving force behind this proposal. It wasn't, let's try and get manpower and see how we can justify the thing. It wasn't that at all. So, I do want to give you those assurances.
This has been talked about for years, Jim. I mean,
Okay.
this isn't the first rodeo on this.
Okay,
So-
it's mine.
Chief, anything for us?
No, I appreciate the chance to come and present my plan to you. Again, as Mr. Franny pointed out, you have some serious discussions on your end to conduct that I'm not prepared to get into a discussion on tonight, obviously. But I think I can get the numbers for you so we can continue to look into the problem and come up with a plan and approach to resolve it.
Your job is to tell us what you need to do your job, and our job is to provide you with the resources, so we'll do our best in that department too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks a lot, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, up next is the School Committee and Town Building Study Committee regarding funding of town buildings and potential need for a special town meeting. Don't everybody fight to get to the mic. All right, who wants to kick this off?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, because I do have a quorum, I just want to publicly open the school committee
Okay,
officially as a,
you calling the school committee to order?
I am calling our school committee to order.
You folks want to just
Some of them
identify
can sit up
yourself
here.
for the residents at home?
Sit here, too.
Sure.
We have chairs over here too, you know. We could put the school committee at one, the building study committee at another, and not to be divisive, or you can split.
Sure.
One
No,
building study
we're
committee
all
and-
one big happy family.
I'll move.
So my name is Lance Kennedy. I'm the school committee chair.
Roger, I guess nobody wants to sit with you. I don't know what the story is.
Gina Hanlon-Kavicki, School Committee Vice Chair.
James O'Brien, school committee member.
Liz Sorrell, Superintendent.
Roger?
Roger Shaw's Town Buildings Study Committee.
Thank you. Okay.
Dan Ryan, chairman of the Town Building Study Committee.
Okay, who's going to kick this off?
I could go. So the Town Building Study Committee met with you at the last meeting to make a recommendation that we move forward with the fire department's proposal for the central fire station. And we asked that we have a special town meeting in the fall. And we did mention that the fire station project can be done within the levy limit, and it does not require a tax increase or a town election to get it off the ground. We recommended, or the Town Building Study Committee recommended, that the Capital Building Stabilization Fund be used to fund the project, and that the wraparound borrowing mechanism be used to defer part of the bond until after 2017, when the town hall and the library bond is paid off. So with the fire station project underway, then the Town Building Study Committee would continue to work with the Board of Selectmen and the schools on the elementary, primary school building projects. And the school building and fire station projects can be done at the same time because they require separate funding strategies. It was the opinion of the town's financial advisor and bond counsel that a capital building stabilization fund could not be used for a school building project because it's not an automatic funding mechanism or a dedicated revenue stream. And that's because it would require a yearly town meeting action. And this was actually presented as an option at town meeting in 2011, and it was withdrawn by the Board of Selectmen because of that reason. It's not a viable option for a school project, given that it's the nature of the scope of the expense of $45 million. So what did happen at town meeting in 2011, it was the intent and the action at town meeting, both in 2011, 12, and 13, to fund the Capital Building Stabilization Fund on the premise that it would be used for the fire and police buildings. And so if you recall, the Town Building Study Committee made a presentation at that town meeting in 2011. That was April 11th. And we put a presentation up for everybody to see. And we clearly spelled out that the purpose of the Capital Building Stabilization Fund that was being established was for the police and fire station. The Town Building Study Committee continues to evaluate ways to minimize the impact to the taxpayer for the school building project. But we know that given the amount of the bond, a couple of years ago was estimated at $45 million, it's going to require an MSBA grant and some kind of a dedicated revenue stream. And that was deemed to be a debt exclusion a couple of years ago, was going to be the strategy that we tried to follow. So the Town Building Study Committee does recognize that we can do these projects in parallel. The town does have the ability to support the two infrastructure projects. And we're back on the path with the MSBA. In fact, I was told they're coming here tomorrow to look at the elementary school building again and start us down that process, which the superintendent can speak to. So we will continue to work strongly on the school project too, as we have. And as I stated, they can both be done in parallel. So the Board of Selectmen at the last meeting asked us to meet with the school officials. And I did meet with the chairman of the school committee, and I also met with the school committee last night. And I met to address any concerns and answer any questions that they have about the mechanism to move forward. And then more importantly, I asked them if they had any objections to us moving forward with the proposal, and there were no objections from the committee last night.
So that's where I step in. We had an opportunity, as Dan shared last night, to hear the proposal, to really understand it a little better. And I think from the school committee standpoint, this project in and of itself, clearly as elected officials to represent the school district, our responsibility is to the school. And that our foremost focus is on getting ourselves a new school. With that, though, we also understand that in this current situation, the proposal, neither of the funding sources we can take advantage of. So from our standpoint, we don't want to jeopardize our MSBA funding and the potential, if we supported any project in town, they'd be like, what are you doing? You should be supporting your own. So from that standpoint, as far as a public acknowledgement of, hey, we're for this, I don't think that's in our best interest to do that, to jeopardize that or compromise any funding source from there. But clearly, as Dan shared, I think we understand that both the time frame isn't going to benefit us on the wraparound piece of that, and then because it's not a dedicated fund, the capitalization, the capital outlay, or the stabilization fund, thank you, is not going to benefit us as well. So from our standpoint, even though we're not publicly acknowledging it, nor we don't feel that's prudent at this time, like you said, we're not in opposition. I think our only challenge or concern would be if it competed for current tax dollars for that, and clearly it's been shown that it doesn't. So that's where we stand at this point.
Questions by the board? Jack?
The dedicated revenue source that we have right now is that $400,000 that's currently flowing into the building stabilization fund. That's pretty much guaranteed as long as it doesn't get put into another budget or something. Right now, we're up to $400,000.
Correct. And by dedicated revenue source, what was intended by that comment 2 years ago was that you can't have a bond for $45 million that requires a 2/3 vote at town meeting every single year to pay all or part of that bond. So what the phrase dedicated revenue source meant was that you don't have to go to town meeting every single year.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, with a stabilization fund, that's how it works. You have to have a 2/3 vote of town meeting to put money into the stabilization fund and take money out.
And I realize all that, but in order to support a debt for either one of the police station or the fire station, you need a dedicated revenue source for that. Right now, it's $400,000. if our debt is gonna be 700,000 and you had 700,000 going in there, then that would be the time to approve a project. Right, you're trying to advance everything out when we don't have the dedicated revenue source.
Well,
We only have 400,000 right now.
correct, and we have the town hall library payment is about $220,000. So what we were going to discuss again with bond counsel, who we had this discussion several years ago, was the ability to use the wraparound mechanism, which would allow you to fund up to 600,000, about $600,000 or so. However, we don't even know what that bond is yet, so we have to get back on this track, because we could be talking about a $500,000 bond, which means we're not that far off to starting the project sooner than later.
You're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because I was on the building and study committee for the police and the fire, and we went out to get money for the schematic design, and it got turned down. I would think before you went forward and had town meeting authorize the funding, you'd try and find out what it's gonna cost you. And that's what the schematic design does. So I think you're jumping ahead of things. But, you know, the wraparound, and I think that confuses a lot of people, as Sarah pointed out at the last meeting, was it's gonna be due in 2017, it'll be paid off, so that wraparound is helping you, like, advance that forward so you can use it in advance.
Okay.
But, I mean, you don't even know what it's gonna cost us to build it right now.
So the question is, what's the next step? If we're all in agreement that we're going to start moving forward here with the fire station, then we would start down that path. So that's probably what we would need to have counsel on, that says, okay, if step number one is to form a committee, a building committee, then let's start doing that. And if we need a town meeting, special town meeting to fund the schematic design, that's what we need to start doing, and that's what we're.
You know, I would say that if we're gonna have a special town meeting, let's put both projects out there, and let's let the voter and the taxpayer decide which project they wanna do first, and have them as two separate articles,
And by two projects, you mean,
one for the police and one for the fire.
okay,
Because I don't think you can do both of them. I think it's gonna take you a number of years to build up that cash flow from the mechanism that we have for the building stabilization fund.
it is correct that it's going to take you, you can't start them at the same time. You'd have to
No.
stagger it by a couple of years at least. And the plan originally was that the fire station would move across the street, and they would take a couple of years by the time they broke ground and did the building. And then at that time, now that they've been vacated, then you would have a spot there for the fire station to renovate. But if there's other plans to move the the police station out first,
Well,
that's what you'd have to
One thing I
decide.
had never considered was, and you brought it up the last time, you said that when you bought the land for the library, you made provision to build the police station. I always thought that was gonna be used for a water well field, but apparently maybe that's not the case. So you'd have the option of building one or the other. Before it was, you know, we knew we were gonna build the fire station across the street, so the theory was, let's build the fire station and then renovate this. But now we have another option, so that's something that we should kick around. But I definitely think we need a special town meeting, and we could put that out to, and now with the school department, you know, for what Lance had to say about the wraparound, I don't even like the term wraparound. I'd rather just
It's
let it
confusing.
naturally expire.
Correct.
Jack, you all set?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you. Have you put the financial information up on the website, Dan?
We have started getting it together, so we're going to post it. So we have to put things for people to understand, so we have started pulling it together, but it's going to take a little time to get it out there. But we'll do that, for sure.
Because if you want buy-in on any project, you've got to let people know what you're talking about.
Correct.
I mean, it's been a couple of years since I've seen numbers, you know, even if
Okay.
it's something, a statement from the town accountant's office.
Okay. Sure, we'll do that.
The other thing is, I really don't understand the rush for a town meeting. We just voted 2 weeks ago to hire a consultant to prioritize the building needs for us. So
Correct.
what are we having a town meeting for?
And I did talk to the consultant and asked them, they have a lot of work to do, and they were targeting to finish around December, but I did ask them if they could prioritize the police and fire station first, and they said that would be no problem. They could have that done in time for a town meeting. And again, I think it's time to start going here. So whatever those steps are we need to start taking, we don't have to do things sequentially. We don't have to make one step happen, then wait for the next, then wait for the next. These things can all happen in parallel again.
And I understand that there are two funding sources, and that the dedicated revenue stream we're talking about is a debt exclusion, and that's for the school. And that
Correct.
every year we have to go back to town meeting and ask town meeting to put money in the building stabilization fund for these projects. I get that. I just, that money's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
So I don't understand why we don't wait for the consultant to advise us. We're paying them for a reason.
Well, while the money's not going anywhere, I probably advise you should talk to the fire chief at some point, because their problem over there gets worse and worse. I mean, we know that the police and fire station have, for many, many years, both been inadequate and have
Oh, I
issues. So
understand that.
waiting another year or two to get started on these projects just didn't make sense to us. We, as a building study committee, under the Selectmen as an advisory board, have been over there to look at the conditions of the building and the need. And what held us up before was we didn't have the funding source. While we helped you with that, we put the funding source in place, and we're advising that we're ready to go. We're actually ready to start the first step of the process, and think we should all work together to do that.
Through you, Mr. Chair?
So, I'm sorry.
No,
Helen.
I'm sorry.
So I don't really understand why we even hired a consultant. If we're ready to go, we should just go. And what's the consultant telling us?
Consultant's gonna look at all the town land, and if you don't want to, I guess we can pull that, that's fine. However, the reason for the consultant was that we did not have a master plan updated. And when we came before you and we asked for the master plan, we went off to do the research and found out that it needed to be updated. So one of the important pieces of that is land use. We have a number of parcels of land that the town owns. And as I stated before, we have a site for the fire station that's already been reserved. We had a possible another site for the police station, whether they stay where they are or move to this other site. So it was for an authoritative group or a group with experience to come in and look at the land use and what our plans are before we start spending money. But again, that can be done in parallel. We don't have to wait for their study to finish, because we all know we have to take care of the police and fire station issue that we have today. We can start moving forward. And as was mentioned last time, even if you have the authority to move forward as a board, you still hold the reins, because you don't have to borrow the money until you're absolutely sure it's the right thing to do. But let's at least get on the path and start executing. As you were talking about the last issue, we got to start doing something. So let's start going down this path and moving forward.
Okay, on the agenda at our last meeting, it did not say we were going to be looking at land use issues. It said that the consultant was going to be prioritizing building needs.
And
So I'm very confused, because I already thought that the MSBA told us where the best place to put the school was.
right.
The consultants who worked with the police and fire station committee told us where they thought was the best place to put things. So that issue, I thought, had been put to bed.
And unfortunately, I don't know where those words, when I requested to meet with you, I did not use the words prioritize, and I did not use that for the study. For some reason, it ended up on the selectmen's agenda that way. I apologize. It wasn't through me. I had just asked if I could get together to talk about special town meeting as an option, and also talk about the study. And nowhere were we looking to prioritize projects. We all know that the school is a priority, the fire is a priority, and the police is a priority, because when we did our study before and looked at all the town buildings, including the town hall, the library, the high school, those three were the top of the list. So we already know what the priorities are. It's just a matter of how we execute. And now that we've identified and created two separate funding sources, we believe that you can do this in parallel, and that's why we're requesting that we start moving forward.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I was under the impression at the last meeting that we all had the understanding that you just wanted to have a special town meeting to be able to get an okay on the contingency to borrow, and that you wouldn't be able to go anywhere with that until we approved the final selection. And then you also were going to go back to this consultant, which it seems like you did, to make sure that he could prioritize the police and fire, so it would be done prior to.
Correct.
We all know that the police, fire, and the school are the main priorities in this town, and I don't see why we can't at least get started. I think it will motivate the town that we're finally doing something to get these projects started, and Dan gave a terrific explanation at the last meeting about how this is not going to impact the school project at all, and as a courtesy, we wanted you to come in to make sure it was okay with you. So now I feel like we're going around a circle again, trying to make a decision whether to do the special town meeting. I thought we were gonna get the good graces of the school committee and then grant their request, but I may have misunderstood.
Dick, you have anything?
Can we hear from the superintendent? I know you said there's a meeting tomorrow, Lance, of these Mass School Building Assistance Authority.
Yes.
My question is, if they're coming here tomorrow, do we get any kind of a commitment? I'm a little bit apprehensive about making a commitment to the fire station until we know where we stand, kind of like the school committee. But I really want to move forward on both these projects. If the funding is such and there's enough of a delay so we can capitalize on whatever funds we can put in there this coming town meeting. But anyway, I wanted to hear from Superintendent.
So we submitted the statement of interest with your permission and vote in by March 10th, which was the deadline. And then we heard absolutely nothing until 2 weeks ago. I got a letter that said we are sending out a senior study team, which is an engineer from MSBA, and this year they've hired architects and engineering firm from New York to give the opinions of the state of the building, because they can't hire an in-state firm because then they could not compete to do any of the work. So that's the reason they outsourced that. And I said, okay, and they gave me 6 dates. And I said, we'll be available any one of those dates. Just tell me when you want to come. And they called me at 7:45 yesterday morning and said, we decided Carver really doesn't need another senior study. We can't imagine that it's gotten a lot better since 2007, and that it would be a waste of our resources to spend. It's quite a process. But we want to come talk to you because you are unique and you stand alone. And quite frankly, we're trying to decide if we admit you into the, back into the pipeline, where will we admit you to? So, so they're coming to discuss with us, and before they go discuss with any of the other statement of interest, there are 12. They narrowed it down from 60 or 70 applications to 12. That included us, but they're putting us in front. So to me, that says that we have some sort of priority. But they haven't been on this road before. They haven't invited somebody back into the process. So we're the first case. So they're going to come and discuss this. They're sending us Diane Sullivan, who's the person you talk to if you call it the MSBA, and Brian McLaughlin, who is in charge of the statement of interest process. So we will meet with them tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll come away with as many questions as they will. And frankly, I don't know what the next steps will be, but they will be making the invitation in November to invite people back into the process. So they want, what I gathered from the process is they want to find out enough from us. Are we ready? Are we willing to go? Because they've already invested a lot of money in us. And all the other projects they've invested in at the same time are done. So they're trying to figure out if we are ready for their next level of investment. And, you know, I just urge the Board of Selectmen and the public at large to be patient with us, because there isn't a set format for going forward with MSBA, because we are at a different place than anyone else. We know they have new phases instead of the process we had before. So where they put us in this phase will really be up to them. And I can't really describe it. I hope I'll get some clarity on this.
So tomorrow, if we tell them we're going forward on a commitment to the fire station,
I don't think that they would have any problem with the town deciding to build a fire, a police, a senior center. Plymouth has built almost all of those in the last year. I don't think that would be a problem. What they just want to gauge, is this community willing to re-engage and to move this project forward? Whether or not you want to move 2 or 3 or 6 more projects, that would not be detrimental. And, but they're just willing to get, where is the community now? What community support do we have for moving any kind of project forward? But their interest is in the school. I don't think it would be detrimental, but I don't think the school committee should push one project over another, because they're looking for the school committee to back
But
the schools.
we, the selectmen, could.
You could absolutely
That is
back,
the role, yes.
yes, absolutely. I mean, this is 8 years we've been talking since I've been here. What do we need? We need a school, we need a police, and we need a fire. And I hate to tell you, the high school needs a new septic or wastewater treatment plants and a roof. So, things are backing up. We've got to start moving to keep them from all falling apart.
Mr. Chairman,
We got to speed this up, Jack, so
this
quickly, please.
isn't one project versus another.
No.
Now that Lance has stepped forward and said the school, won't object to using the $270,000 towards either a police station or a fire station, that advances it up that much closer that we can build this project under the levy. A project the magnitude of the school is going to require a debt exclusion.
Absolutely.
They're two different things. I think the fact that we would move forward and build one of these projects, have a special town meeting, might encourage the SBA that we're willing to stand behind these
We're
things.
making momentum.
And I think that we should leave it up to the voters to decide whether they want to build a police station or a fire station. It isn't up to us to pick one over the other. That's why I recommended having 2 separate articles and having a special town meeting.
Thank you, Jack. Chief Weston, you had your hand up?
I did.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Jump right in there.
Mr. Chairman, in your own words, as you said to the police chief, we're here to express a need. And, it's the Board of Selectmen's job to support that need. And I sit there and, I get really frustrated because I don't sense that among the board. And to me, it's very simple. We have a very unified front here and a unified, group. And I have a need as a fire station, and it's a need that's growing every day. And we started the need in 1998. We held off. We expressed the need in 2006. We held off. We listened to the voters. The voters said they didn't have the money at the time, but we believe in the project. And when you come back with a solution, we'll support it. What did we do in 2010? We put together a committee, as was asked by the Board of Selectmen, to come up with a creative solution, because that's what we do in the fire service. We come up with creative solutions. And they come before you with a plan of no tax increase to the voters, of exactly what we were asked to do. We got a unified front, with people here, and we got a plan to move forward. It's very simple. Myself and the police chief are very united in how the project should go. There's a logical sense to it. We spent 2.5 years as a committee with Jack on it, and we studied every piece of property. So to say we didn't study the Roby property isn't correct. We decided as a committee that that would be held out for a future project, because the police department need frontage on Route 58, the fire station need frontage on Route 58. In order to do them logically, it needed that the fire department would move to the training facility, build a new training facility behind it, keeping the fire station in service, to provide service to the town, and then we would tear down the fire station, so the police station, a new police station could be built, leaving the police department in service, allowing both public service agencies to have frontage on Route 58. And then still have property in town to figure out what we could do with next. It's a very simple plan that we came to a solution that we were presented with by a group, and we did it. And all we're asking is to try to move forward in a logical point of view and be supported. But I sit here and I'm really frustrated that, and not everybody, and I'm not looking at everybody, but that we're trying to find ways to make it more complicated than it is. And I don't think it needs to be. I think they're asking, whether we have a special town meeting or the regular town meeting. I just want to move forward, so there is an urgency to this, because this doesn't happen overnight. This is going to be 2 years in the making. And I'm trying to keep a fire service going that I believe in passionately. But every week and every month we wait, I suffer, okay? And it's just a suffer to the service and trying to save everyone some money. So I just ask you to look deep inside and support this and try to move forward. You know, we do not want to get at a competition into a statement that was made. We want to put it to the voters, decide what project to put first. That's the last thing we want to do. Okay, you know, we work in public safety hand in hand, and we don't want a competition out there to find out who's going to go first. We have a logical plan. We know what we want to do. No consultant, and we're willing to meet with a consultant, but we have a detailed plan.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Purcell?
Mr. Chairman, in a short period of time, I've grown to admire the fire chief's competence and enthusiasm. That was certainly on display tonight. But, Chief, in 2 weeks' time, the Board of Selectmen has advanced this project by, getting a dialogue going with another major department in the town to make sure that there would be no conflicts between the project paths. Okay, so if everything hasn't gone if you haven't heard everything to your liking tonight, I think you need to give the board as a whole, the credit for advancing this thing forward once the building committee came. I think the dialogue here in the last two selectmen meetings is really advancing your cause. So, I just urge a little more understanding, a little more patience
Through you, Mr. Chair.
in that respect. Mr. Chairman, just as whether you're for any capital project whatsoever, there is I've discussed with the town accountant, there is a need for a fall special town meeting. There are 6 or 8, my count is up to 8 now accounts that have to be reconciled. The North Carver Water District budget has to be revoted in its entirety. Certain things have to be done. So, whether you have a capital item on a fall special town meeting warrant or not, there is, according to the town accountant, a need for a meeting nevertheless.
Thank you. Ms. Marone, want to wrap this up?
I just want to hope again that we were at the last meeting and we charged Dan with going forth and doing something, and we did. He went and he spoke with the school committee. These departments, we're creating a separation. We should be working as a community. And I think by putting it to town meeting to say who should go first, I think that's not fair to any one of the groups. And if the school committee is saying that this is not going to interfere, Dan did what we said for him to do, and that was to ask the consultant to do that piece of the work first, bring the school committee together, and then we would put it hopefully put it to the special town meeting to give the contingency to borrow, knowing that he still can't go further unless he comes back to us. I think it would be, and I personally think after what Liz has said tonight, that I think it will show the MSBA that we're not continuing to go into a circle of just keep going back and forth and back and forth. I think it's going to show the MSBA that the town, at least the officials, are ready to start making some decisions and moving forward with these projects that are desperately needed. So.
Thank you. Dick, one final word, and we're going to close this.
Yeah, no, I was just going to suggest maybe we can instruct town administrator to look at the dates and the things that, and maybe next meeting we can set up a town meeting, special town meeting.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say one last thing?
One last thing.
Yeah. What I haven't heard before, so clearly stated, and thank you, is that the school has to have a debt exclusion to go forward, and the fire department can, and police department hopefully can go on a different route, on a different funding source. And I think that was a very large confusion in the community. And I think that's a really big public statement, and I really thank you for putting that together and for you to make it public. And then the other thing is they have to adjourn their meeting publicly.
Please do.
Thank you. Accept a motion to adjourn. We have a motion?
second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
First of all, I
Thank you.
want to thank everybody for their participation tonight. We've got some momentum going on these projects. We've just got to hammer out the details and keep moving. So Dan, continue to be aggressive.
So, when are we gonna answer to next meeting?
Next meeting, we're gonna discuss, date for a special town meeting, correct?
But in
Why can't we
regards to
discuss
their
it tonight?
request,
It's on the agenda. And he
But
brought
in-
up the fact that we're going to need one anyhow. Why put it off again? Keep
well,
putting
that's why I'm
things off.
saying,
Okay.
can we make the
It's gonna work
motion
on
tonight
dates.
to
Jim, do you have a recommended date?
Dates, you need so many days.
Mr. Chairman, I have worked with the town clerk on a proposed schedule. She was kind enough to put it together, you know, keeping holidays in mind, keeping, you know, the timing to get the tax rate set and get the tax bills out, et cetera, et cetera. So Lynn was a great help in that regard. The, you know, a possible special town meeting date could be Monday, October the 28th. That would mean that the last day to post the meeting warrant would be October 11th. So you've got pretty much a month's time, you know, to put that warrant together and post it. I think that's a pretty comfortable time period. But October 28th seems to, in the town clerk's mind, and certainly from what I can see, seems to work.
I'd like to make a motion. We use the dates that Jim gave us and we post a special town meeting.
We have a motion?
I'll
Second.
second.
We have a second.
What
further-
was the date, Jim?
October 28th?
October 28th was a suggested date, Mr. Chairman.
28th, okay.
Any further questions, comments, concerns?
Yes, Dan, you needed us to make a specific motion for the,
Well, if you'd like us to move forward, we'll work with the fire department, police department to craft whatever articles and then work with the town administrator in the logical procedure here of how do we,
We're just scheduling the town meeting. You can come up with the article afterwards.
okay.
That's what he's saying. He's gonna
Yeah.
work, he's gonna work with everybody.
So we can take our vote and schedule the town meeting, special
Okay.
town meeting now.
All
is
right.
that okay?
What's that, Roger?
The direction. But we need to schedule the town meeting right now. We can work on the article and the other things afterwards.
No,
want us to work on them or not?
no, I
I do.
think what they want is an approval. Is that,
We work.
We're talking about
Okay, there's a different motion
there's
on
two
the
different
floor.
issues
Yeah,
here.
there's a motion
We're
for a
talking
special
about
town meeting
scheduling a
right now.
special town meeting.
understand
All right, so let's not confuse the issues.
I understand that.
Let's take a vote on that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of special town meeting on
Aye.
October 28th, please say aye.
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 Aye, okay. That was unanimous. All right. Now, what's the next topic?
Dan needs a motion to be able to create an article,
Set of articles.
a set of articles for town meeting to be able to move forward with the fire department project. Is that correct?
Correct.
You-
Right.
Do you really
Why
need a?
why do you need a
I don't
motion
think
for
you need a
that?
motion for
Or
that.
just a,
You've already got a
or
mandate.
direction from the
Yeah.
board to
We're
move
gonna set
forward.
it-
and
Hey, just
create
go with
articles.
it.
We're
Okay.
gonna set a deadline when the articles have to be in.
Yeah.
You just have to go and work on it.
October 11th, I think
Okay.
Jim said everything had to be in. So we need those as quickly as you can so we can approve them and get them published.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, think in terms, this term, design development, okay? There is a prescribed state process, public building process. And design development is actually something, Mr. Franny didn't use the term, but one of the articles might be, you know, funding that. That's generally the precursor to a borrowing authorization. It's, you know, it occasionally happens on the same warrant, but, you know, you want the design, it's not full design, it's design development, but it includes, you know, cost estimate profile, and that's when you really start nailing some things down.
Okay, and we'll work with you on that. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Clerk?
I just need to correct something. You said October 11th was the last day to get everything in. That's the last day to post.
To
Post the
post it.
warrant,
So
yeah.
when would everything,
You want to arrange something prior to.
So yes.
so it has to be in by the next meeting, which is the end of the month? Okay. Copy that, Dan?
In by next meeting.
Check.
Okay.
You're wasting time. What's the matter?
All right?
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Moving on, we have the residents of Pine Street and abutters of Edaville Railroad to discuss concerns relating to the proposed expansion. Do we have a representative for the folks that, the residents around Edaville?
Are they out there by any chance?
You folks here for Edaville? You want to come on in? We can't hear you out there. If you have a spokesman or two, we would like to have them sit up front. And the Edaville reps, why don't you two come up here, or one, or whoever it is gonna.
Hello, my name is Jean Taylor. I live at 24 Pine Street. The residents of the area have some issues with what's going on. I'd like to read something briefly. I bought a poster. What effect does all this construction have on the existing wildlife in the area? We're having a lot of problem down in our area with dirt and dust flying around. And we have this box turtle, an endangered species, very popular in our area. And all these trees on my poster have been removed. The habitat has been removed and plant life destroyed. This park is becoming a negative effect on our way of life as a neighborhood. We do not feel that it is, good for our neighborhood to have this park moving in with all these additions. We're just very unhappy. There are a bunch of us, and in the past, Carver and the residents have all supported the continuance of Edaville Railroad. I'd like to point out that the residents no longer feel that this business integrates well into our neighborhood. It's no longer going to be a seasonal, quiet amusement park if we allow all these proposed expansions and additions. Over 300 employees is a large number to control, even with security in place. It will change our suburban neighborhood into a busy, noisy, active way into Edaville. This may affect other neighborhoods as well as the park expands. Noise is a valid concern to us. Trash removal, I put a picture of the trash up there that they left out uncovered all weekend. Delivery trucks, public address systems, piped-in music will be very noticeable to us and will disturb our way of life.
Sir.
Hi, my name's David Burns. I live at 36 Pine Street. I do not want to vilify Edaville. I want to help Edaville, but I want Edaville to help us as residents. All I'm asking for is a little honesty as to how the rides are going to work, where they're going to be. And I'm begging you not to use town property. I'm asking the town to tell Edaville, do not use that 15-foot strip of town property that runs along the streetway for parking of vehicles. Edaville's proposed putting in a sidewalk, unlike it on Edaville property, so that we can keep that 15 feet. Why? Because we need to get emergency vehicles through, and Edaville needs a turning lane. You can have that 15 feet for your turning lane. It allows us to get our vehicles through, emergency vehicles through, and it protects all of us. We're looking for the safety of their patrons as well as our homes and our own families. And we're asking for the town and Edaville, let's get together and let's build a plan that's agreeable to all of us. I understand Edaville wants to put in a water park. Okay, well, if you can 100% prove it's not going to affect my well or my septic, well, then let's move forward with it. You want to do a roller coaster? Great. If you could move it back so we're not looking at it and hearing it all night long, let's work together on it. But we also have the safety issues we're worried about. You put a roller coaster in, how do you service it in the event of emergency? We have a small fire department. Call fire department. We don't have a ladder truck to service it. We're just asking for plans to be put in place to protect not only the patrons, but the people who live on the street, our property values. I've been looking at that dumpster all weekend, uncovered, unsanitary, and not the way it's supposed to be done. And I'm asking for your help and Edaville's help, whether we need to form a board of homeowners along with Edaville. Well, happily sit down and let's sort this out. I want them to succeed. I bought my house there for a reason. I love the train. I love Edaville. I love watching the Christmas lights. But if you want to expand your park, why does it have to be at my expense? Why does my family have to suffer so you can make $1?
Have you expressed these concerns before?
Yes, I did the walkthrough last year with Edaville, and for their proposed expansion. Was told where it was stopping. It has now gone well past where it was supposed to. They've expanded probably twice the distance that they agreed to. And they cut down the trees that they said they were going to save, so I wasn't looking at people's headlights all night long. I'm asking for a little honesty and a little help. I appreciate anything you can do, and I will sit down with you whenever you need to. I am available.
Anybody
Like I
else?
said, 36 Pine Street, feel free to knock on my door.
Anybody else from the Edaville contingent?
You just said everything I was gonna say.
They've covered me as well, but I have an additional issue.
And you are who, ma'am?
Sorry, Sherry Bassignani, 50 Pine Street in Carver. Our own situation at 50 Pine Street, we just finished a 3-year program at a cost of almost $200,000 to convert our bogs to organic because of lost crop, and et cetera. The water runoff at the new parking lot pours across the Pine Street to an abandoned bog directly across the street, which feeds the wetlands and that feed into our bog. So we're a little bit nervous about that. I don't know if any studies have been done on that.
Who owns that abandoned bog over there?
I don't know the name. Does anybody know? I don't know. I can find out. It's let's see. The water issue never happened before and threatens our organic certification. And on a related matter, we just went through our own issue regarding our driveway. We had to seek permission variance from the town as our driveway was paved back in 2002, apparently in violation of the conditions to build. We had to submit an engineering plan for water runoff, notify all the abutters of both Pine and Rochester Road by certified mail, and go to 3 town meetings for approval, which we thankfully got, all for a residential driveway. Edaville has doubled its parking lot, moved thousands of tons of earth, put down aggregate, put up enormous new buildings, installed some undersized drains, and we ever got so much as a letter about the goings-on at Edaville. I just wondered how this could be.
Mr. Pascoli? Brenda? Somebody care to respond to the concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there's other residents here as well that may want to speak, just for your own information. But first of all, there was a comment made that about a water park. There's no water park proposed at Edaville. In fact, we met with the planning board and went through site plan approval, modification, and we had an open house at Edaville for 2 weeks last year, and several people, including Mrs. Taylor there, dropped by and visited the plan, and questions were answered, and it was an open and very fair discourse. Where Edaville is working on an existing footprint of what Edaville was. The one group of trees where cars were parked amongst the trees has been cleared, and the reason for that is because all the parking now is consolidated in one area, so there's no grade crossings for people to go across. Also, the parking lot originally, if you look back in 2000, was 75% impervious, meaning it was paved with no drainage. Today, it's completely pulverized. It's 100% pervious. And actually, Edaville has more groundwater recharge than it's ever had. It's completely pervious. It's all recycled material, recycled and compacted. The sidewalks that are proposed, I met with the planning board. I met with Mr. Bill Hallion. Mr. Bill Hallion told me exactly what he wanted, and that's exactly what I did. He asked for 5 catch basins abutting the sidewalk. Those have been put in. They are not up to grade at this point because you can't do the final adjustments until the sidewalk is in. There are turning lanes proposed. All this work on this parking lot has gone through the channels. Edaville's working within the existing footprint. I think people need to step back and realize that when Edaville was going to be, back in 1991, when the trucks all headed north, that was a pretty sad day for the town of Carver. Some people here may not remember that. I saw videos of it. I wasn't here at the time, of course. And then it's had its stops and starts over the years, and subdivisions that were proposed and so on. And when I discussed Edaville and the fact that Edaville cannot remain as a viable entity under its current format, it has to be open more days to cover the taxes, the insurance, and the necessary overhead. So we embarked on advancing this to make it a very, very special and a very, very, very attractive attraction for preschool, from basically children from 0 to 14, their parents and their grandparents, in a very retro, family-oriented experience, not with iPods, not with computers, but with people speaking to each other and enjoying old-fashioned barbecues, and a real rollback of time, a real wonderful attraction to have in a community. There isn't a community in the 351 cities and towns that wouldn't want Edaville. In fact, I own a large parcel, actually it's right next to where the Milford Casino was proposed today, in Holliston. They were very excited about a relocation of Edaville there because of the jobs, for all the things that are coming to this town. And I thought long and hard about it, but I want, Edaville is part of Carver. When you go anywhere in the United States and you say, well, Edaville, they know where that is. They may not know where Carver is. So I think it's important to understand. Now, as far as the neighborhood and neighborhood committees and so forth, I'm sure Mr. Hunter wants to speak tonight, but there already is a neighborhood committee that was formed by the planning board. We've already had our first meeting. We've already come up with some great ideas and solutions. In fact, as early as this afternoon, I met with all the public safety officials at Edaville, and nobody has any concerns whatsoever. And the concerns that were raised are future concerns, but there are no current concerns. Do you know that this is a quote, I can't stop thinking about it, that the ambulance gentleman said, that runs your ambulance service, said that there's more calls to King Richard's Fair in a weekend than there is at Edaville in 2 years. So I think you have a children's attraction, their parents and grandparents. It's pretty innocuous, really, and it's a wonderful thing. The other thing you got to think about too, it's a great place for first jobs. There's a lot of children that work there. They can work as young as 14 with permission from their parents. That keeps people out of mischief, keeps people out of drugs and other things that they may go in. Nothing beats a job. People that work end up not getting in trouble typically. It's also people's last job in the sense that they're retired and they go there to work, and there's a lot of full-time people. When he mentions 300 jobs, well, that's combined and a lot of part-time and full-time jobs over to cover the different shifts. It's a wonderful thing to be able to have that, and to be able to have that here, and the benefit it will bring to all the different businesses and everything else in the town, not to mention, the economic benefits. I will let Brenda speak about how we handle the trash and so forth. Edaville has never been as hygienic and as clean and as well managed as it is today. The place is immaculate. If you go to TripAdvisor, you'll see that's the first comment people have, how clean it is, how safe it is, and how wonderful they enjoy it, even though even at this stage it isn't fully built out. So I think really, we are reaching out to the neighbors. The neighbors have had full access. They've had Brenda's cell phones from probably from before cell phones were invented. These folks here, in all due respect, are certainly entitled to their opinions and their positions. There's a lot of other people that live in that neighborhood that are quite happy with Edaville and quite happy with our interaction with the neighbors and our response to working with them. We as a good corporate citizen will do everything in our power to please everybody. But the reality is you're never going to do that, and trying to do that is almost impossible. But we will make every effort, working with Jack Hunter, working with the neighborhood committee, working with neighbors in a reasonable, fair, and forthright way. That's why we had an open house. That's why we give them cell numbers. That's why we're available 24/7. That's why we employ a lot of children that live in this neighborhood. Here's a nice little story that I think people should think about. And this is really, really important. A gentleman came to see us one day, drove up, a gentleman maybe 40 years old, came up and said, I worked for a company that was in business for like 60 years, and I was their top, he was like an HVAC, generalist, very good mechanic. And he says they closed without notice, and he says, I need a job. I have a mortgage to pay, and I live in the neighborhood. I mean, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, he told me what he could do, and I said, well, it's Friday, come in Monday. That's the real effect of Edaville. If Edaville wasn't there, that job wouldn't be there, and that gentleman could very well lose his house. I mean, you know, yes, the economy seems to be percolating a little bit better. There's still a lot of people that have just given up, that can't find work. Edaville has right now over 40 people working there on a weekly basis, full-time, today. Those jobs wouldn't be there. And a lot of these jobs, you know, I felt good that I was able to provide that. And I'm funding this entire thing out of my pocket, 100%. That's a huge investment in this town. And the hope that this is a partnership for everybody on this board and everybody going forward, that we all work together. We're open door policy, Mr. Chairman. We're an open door policy. And I think if you ask other neighbors that could be here tonight, I'm not sure who's here, if they're interested in speaking, to say how open we are. We're going to do everything in our power, and I'll certainly address some of the comments here. But the reality is we are working with the town. We are working with the departments. We are working with everybody, and we are a partnership. And we're only working within the footprints that are already been basically established. So I don't know what else to say. I'd like to turn the mic to Brenda just to address the trash issue, if I may.
We did have a large roll-off dumpster placed there during our busy events. It was supposed to be picked up in between the events. It didn't happen. We did squish it down. We did have people picking up the trash, so there wasn't trash all over the neighborhood. It's no longer there. They picked it up, and we have a regular dumpster that gets emptied twice a week and sometimes 3 times a week. And we have people that pick up the trash if it should overspill. But the normal dumpster does have a cover, both on the top and both on the sides.
We consider it inconsiderate of the Edaville owners to not care about what we say. We did not get letters as butters.
That's untrue.
Jean, that is untrue, and you know that. You were in my office
All right, folks.
4
folks,
times.
nope. All right, we're not here to cast stones at one another, okay? What I'd like to do, excuse me, sir. Mr. Hunter, come on up here, and I'd like you to enlighten us as to what kind of communications we have going on with groups and meetings and.
I didn't receive any letter as a butter. So you did? I didn't say you did. Did I? Okay, well, we've been working on different plans with Edaville over the last couple of years, actually. About 2 years ago, the planning board approved an entranceway for the tickets to be taken and some offices and things like that. It's very attractive, actually, about 2 years ago. And then Mr. Della Pascoli came into my office a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and wanted to change that. But he also wanted to, again, talk about the master plan that he has and this vision he has to expand the park. And then we also received a petition from these folks here and many others. I don't know how many names were on there, 30, 28, I can't remember. And I guess it was 3 weeks ago, the planning board had a meeting. It was very crowded. I know we had 3 selectmen there. And we heard much what you've heard today, but in much more detail, and I've heard some new things I hadn't heard that night. And we've also heard testimony from John and many other people about what goes on there and not goes on there, and what's said and not said. Public safety is certainly an issue, noise, visual, property values, that kind of thing.
Is there a standing committee of residents?
Well, I'll tell you what happened is the planning board then scheduled 2 public walks, 1 private walk and 1 public walk. We met today with all the public safety officials, including DPW, and Mr. Della Pascoli and Ms. Johnson and the planning board, to go over what's going on there today and some of the concerns the planning board had heard, mostly addressing public safety and drainage. And I have to agree with the statement said that what I heard from the public safety, I don't think the planning board members here, was that public safety today is not an issue with them. They're comfortable with what they have today.
What my concern is the quality of life issues.
And
those can be reconciled if there is a committee or group meeting.
And I want to get to that, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. And then we also had scheduled for September 23rd, a walk with the planning board again, and we're going to invite the public safety and DPW there, as well as all the residents, and we're going to do a mailing, direct mailing to all the residents. Since that time, I met with Ms. Taylor 2 weeks ago, and she asked me if I would meet with some neighbors, and actually, and she wanted to kind of stay in the background. She gave me some names. Brenda gave me some names, and I had the privilege of meeting with 4 neighbors a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. And we started addressing some of these issues, like quality of life, like what are they gonna see? Can they move the roller coaster? What about the plume? What's the noise? What's the height? What's it gonna look like? And I thought we got pretty far with that meeting, and we started to make some inroads on so that these guys and the ones that were at that meeting can see visually what it's going to look like. And we do this in planning and the planning board a lot. From the streetscape, well, am I going to see the top of that roller coaster? What's the noise level? What kind of traffic? That kind of stuff. And we started to get somewhere. I hadn't met with these 4 at that meeting. I'll meet with anyone. I'm hoping on the 23rd we can have as many residents there as possible, and we can go over this palette of issues and try to come up with some logical things. No one, I've never heard one person, residents, public safety, or certainly not John, wants anything but this to succeed. But we got to find the right way for that to happen.
Absolutely, and I think through communication, we can do that.
I do.
So if we have this established committee, there's representatives from the local residents, the abutters, and there's a representative from the park or something, I think that can go a long way to preventing having to come to this level to.
I agree, and I think I'm hoping, and you're spurring this on me here, on the 23rd, I wouldn't mind if we could come to that, where we could get maybe 4 representatives, a broad view of the neighborhood, plus Edaville, plus myself, I'll facilitate, we get a public safety person, a planning board, maybe a selectman, and we periodically meet to discuss these as things move forward, to address all their concerns.
Absolutely. We'd like everybody to be a part of this
It's
solution.
complicated.
So,
What time is it gonna be, do you know?
5 o'clock.
Okay.
I can email the Board of Selectmen if you'd
That would be
like.
nice.
Well, we're getting there. It's complicated. I feel for them, but we also want them to succeed. So, we're gonna get there. I'm very confident, I'll say this, John. It was up and down with Sampson's Pond many, many times, and we got through this. And John and I kind of shook hands about we're going to use the spirit of Sampson's Pond and the condominiums there. That's been a success now after a lot of issues there. And we're going to use that spirit of cooperation to try to do it here.
well, I think the intent of tonight's meeting is to bring it forward, to make us aware that there are issues, and we accept that responsibility. We also encourage you to establish a working group with the park and see if you can't resolve these things like headlight glare and different things like that. In the event that you can't, then we will absolutely step in and see what we can do. Okay? But I think you need to take it to the next level and establish a working group. Talk to the representatives from the park and see if you can't resolve these problems one at a time. So we can all work in harmony, and the town will benefit from this in its entirety, so. Any members of the board have any questions or comments that they would like to make?
No, I was at the planning board meeting, so
Okay.
I listened, I heard, and I worked with it.
I was at the planning board also. I did want to make a couple of comments, because I was at the new YPAC meeting at the Benjamin Ellis School. The Doreen Merritt Community Memorial Fund donated a huge amount of money to the program. And the Doreen Merritt Community Fund raises a large part of their funds at their annual Edaville Railroad Run in November. So a vote of thanks also has to go out to Edaville for the support for the White Pack program. I want you to know that. On the other hand, I'm sitting here, and you know, we are politicians, so here we go. We're saying one good thing to these folks, and we're telling you folks we're concerned with your, you know, your standard of living and some of the things that, but I think, I don't want to lose Edaville. I've been longer here than most of you. Matter of fact, most of you have been alive. But I also feel for folks, my community, my neighbors, and I just picture a change in use on Edaville as a nice train goes by and it's tooting the whistle. And then I see a roller coaster. What's the function of a roller coaster? It's to make kids scream, right? So I see a big change in that for you to be looking out at. So, but I'm in hopes, obviously, by talking about both situations, that we can take this committee and we can work something out. That's my feelings, and I just want you folks to know we feel for our citizens, but we don't want to be anti-business. We want to support business, because that's helping our town too. So,
Thank you, Dick. Sarah?
I concur.
Jack?
And I was at the planning board meeting, I actually met with some of the neighbors over the weekend, and it sounds from what Jack had to say and what John had to say and what you have to say that, you know, maybe you can get together. I'm looking forward to the 23rd, and I plan on being there as well, so.
Do you mind just restating that?
And just to reiterate what Dick said, you know, we're all politicians, so you gotta remember, you can't satisfy all the people all the time.
Thank you, Jack. Any closing comments, folks? Is that acceptable? Establish that working group. Try and see if you can't resolve the
It's
issue.
very acceptable. This is all we've been asking
Okay.
for.
Absolutely.
An honest answer.
September 23rd, 5 PM, in
Sep-
the parking lot. What happens if it rains?
We get wet.
Yeah, bring an umbrella.
We'll figure it out.
Thank you, folks. John?
Thank you.
Thank you for your participation tonight. Okay, folks, I just want to restate something here quickly. The deadline for articles for the special town meeting is to be 9/30/13 at 4 PM. The date of our next meeting is 9/24/13.
I didn't know when you wanted.
Well, I think we better set the deadline for 9/24, so that we can, we have to review them, right?
For 9 what?
9/24,
24.
And then you can review them at the following meeting.
right,
If it doesn't, okay.
yep.
9/24 is our meeting, we should probably have the deadline before that, so that they can assemble them and get them in our packets. How about that Friday at noon time,
What is that Friday?
beforehand?
Yeah, hey, you know,
It's right around the corner.
yeah, I know.
Unless we had a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen just to review the articles.
What do you think, Ollie?
The Friday before that is the 20th, so we close it out at noon on the 20th?
Thursday, the 19th.
Thursday, the 19th, by 4 PM.
So that's 9 days?
It's 9 days.
That's plenty of time. That's plenty of time.
Is that what you say, Ms. Weston?
Yep.
All right. That's all I
You
need
got,
to
you
know.
got that, Elaine? You all set with that? Okay, good girl. Good luck.
So for clarity's sake, again, Mr. Chairman, the
For clarity's
announcement
sake,
is-
the deadline for articles for the special town meeting will be 9/19, September 19th, 2013, at 4 PM. That's a Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for reminding me. What I'd like to do now, before we start the interviews for the Town Administrator Selection Committee, is I'd like to take a 5-minute break here.
Thank
Okay?
you.
And I'm going to recuse myself for the next discussion.
And I will be recusing myself, too. All right. All right, folks, 7th any...
Call the meeting back to order. I'm gonna take one item out of order. Request for common vicular license for a bed and breakfast, Maureen Fuller. Is Maureen here? You wanna come up and state your case? All right, Maureen, want to tell us a little bit about your bed and breakfast?
Yes, last spring, with my husband being away working with FEMA, I took my license back and didn't renew it, and that now we want to reopen. My grandson's gone to preschool now, and we're hoping that Ed will be back at the end of October. And we've renewed all of our other licenses with the Board of Health and with the town clerk's office, and the building inspector and the fire department has inspected the house. Everything else has been in place and ready to go since early summer, but of course, the board didn't meet this summer, so now I'm here tonight to get renewed for my common victualer's license.
And you want to just explain a little bit about where your bed and breakfast is?
Yes,
For the people at
it's
home.
on the green in North Carver, and it's right across from the post office and the old Congregational Church.
And you were in business before, for how many
Yes,
years?
yes, we opened, I believe, in 2009, and then I just let my license, I took my license off just for this last year and a half. And I just want to renew everything now, and this is the last step in getting everything in a row.
Any questions from the board?
No, I make a motion to approve Maureen Fuller's.
Motion made to approve,
Second.
second by Sarah. Any more discussion? Dick?
Nope, I approve.
Sarah?
I'm all set.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
All set, thank you very much, Maureen.
Thanks very much, and thank you for allowing me to hop into the schedule.
Okay, now we'll go to the town administrator screening committee applicant interviews.
And Elaine, I'll be recusing myself.
First one is George Callahan.
Good evening, sir. My name's George Callahan. I live at 61 Fosdick Road, Carver. And I appreciate the board allowing me to come up in front of you and volunteer to be part of the steering committee. My background, a little bit, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel out of the Army and also a retired division director, branch chief out of FEMA. I've worked both of those careers, one after the other, and continued on to that. And I retired in February of this year. My wife and I have got we're living here now, and we want to get more active in the town and help out as much as we possibly can. Being retired, I do have the time and be able to do this. In both my careers, I spent many a time on boards of selections for senior personnel, both for command positions in the military and in command positions at FEMA. I have both chaired them and been members of both boards. And I appreciate your vote and to help on the steering committee as it goes.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Nope, I'm good.
George, why did you choose the town administration screening committee? Is it because of your experience, just getting started in the town? There's a lot of other committees.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there a particular reason?
Right. Oh, it's the first one that I felt comfortable with right now. I have been attending a lot of the board meetings and learning more about the town, and maybe in the future be able to get on one of the committees where I can assist the town and more in other positions also.
Perfect.
So looking forward to working with the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Next candidate is John Deli Priscoli.
Good evening. Well, it's nice to try to be involved here in the town. I feel very involved as it is, obviously with everything I have going. A little bit of background on me that you may not be familiar with. I've lived on my own. I've been since I was 15 and built my business from scratch. Went away to prep school in Maine and went away to college in Colorado and started my own business in 1979 and have been on my own ever since. I've served on several committees, mostly in the city of Marlborough, And I've been very active both in philanthropic activities in Marlboro, very active in the school system, very active in the rail trail up there, and very active in helping out less fortunate people. I think with my business background and my entrepreneurial background and the fact that I think Carver needs to, as I think Mr. Ward said, we need to be friendly to business. I think with my background, having a strong business background and an entrepreneur and understanding small business in particular could be a good fit for the town, and making sure that our candidates understand the needs of the town. At the same time, I understand the needs of others. So to find the right candidate that has that balance that can bring this town forward, I'd love to be part of that. I'm a large taxpayer in the town. I live at 18 South Main Street, and I've really grown fond of the town, and I'd like to be part of it, and I think this would be a nice entry into helping out at a different level than I'm normally at. But I'm here to help if you think you need me. Okay?
Any questions from the board? I'm good.
Thank you.
All right, we'll call the next candidate. Thea Dickinson Rawls. Hope I got that right.
Hi, I'm Thea Dickinson Rolls. I live at 27 Priscilla Mullins Way. I am the mother of 11-year-old triplets as of Thursday. I have been serving for the past 3 years on the elementary PTO. I am a clinical therapist. I do child and family counseling at an agency in Taunton where I've been for the last 17 years and have participated in a number of committees. I'm the assistant director of school-based services there. We provide in-school counseling to children, and then certainly family therapy outside that. The reason that I decided to approach this was, I had done 3 years on the PTO and working, very closely with the staff of the elementary, working with the students and families of the over 900 students that we have down there. And it was time to move on. My children are 5th graders this year, can't join the middle school PTO. So I wanted to really get involved in the town. I really felt that this was an opportunity for me to sort of represent what the families are going through here in town, and really sort of, I think, speak to, I think what I've seen in the last couple of years is that there has been a lot of us versus them, a lot of one-sided, a lot of, I've been at the large meetings where, there's been a lot of vitriol, and that's not how I like to see the town. And so, I think my nature in solving problems and being a counselor at heart, I think that was something that I could bring to, deciding a new town administrator.
Any questions?
I'm good.
I do.
Okay.
Girls or boys, you triplets?
Can I just say, every time I get introduced at work, they always introduce me as a mom of triplets. And I think, I have so many other professional accomplishments, and that's the one thing everybody wants to hear about. But I am happy to answer that. I have 2 girls and a boy.
The reason I'm asking is because I'm the father of 34-year-old twins.
Oh, okay, so.
And I was a selectman before, and they had a lot of fun at my expense when I was a selectman, so.
Well, and let me just say.
Bear in mind what you're getting yourself into.
Well, the first 2 gentlemen are a bit of a tough act to follow. I think that, their years of experience in business and that sort of thing is certainly nothing that I can compete with in that venue. But I do think that that I have something else to bring, just in terms of, having seen what the schools go through, having, my connections with a lot of the families in town, particularly the, families of young children. So again, it's certainly different from what the other 2 candidates bring, but, certainly I feel I have a lot of value to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask one question?
Go ahead.
Thea?
Yes.
You do seem to have a lot of the people skills, and, with your professional experience of being able to work together. Have you considered volunteering on another committee where? and
Well, okay, so how this sort of happened was,
this is a very short term
and you know what? That was actually sort of one of the appeals of it, because I had just come off doing 3 years at the PTO, and that was a lot of work, a lot of reward. We raised a ton of money, worked really well, forged connections within the community, and so I wasn't quite ready to jump into something long term. But certainly, if this were to turn out to to be a positive experience, and even if I were not chosen to be a part of this committee, I absolutely do think that I would want to be part of something in the future. It was just, I think that at the time that I was gaining more time, this was the committee that was much more public. So I think this is the one that I sort of had seen first, and again, knowing that it was going to be somewhat finite in terms of its commitment, I think that had a little bit of an appeal, to just sort of see how well I can balance 5th grade homework this year. And
doesn't get any easier.
No.
Times 3.
Yeah, times three, right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And the next candidate is Anne Marie Olson.
Anne Marie Olson, 12 South Meadow Road. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for allowing me to come before you. I sat there and listened to, why did you come before, and volunteer. It's kind of scary to volunteer for anything. As my dad used to say, being in the Marine Corps, you never volunteer for anything. But after seeing what has been happening in the town, I've lived here 37 years. I have 2 grown children who have gone through the school system. I was a bus driver in the town for 18 years. I was an EMT in the town, served the town of Carver, one of the original EMTs in the town of Carver. You don't get paid a lot of money being an EMT, but I did it because I cared about the people. I did it because I wanted to make a difference. And that's basically why I decided to come forward and volunteer. I think it's very important, after looking at the last town meeting and the division within the town. And I think it's important that we have somebody that is going to represent all of the people, not different organizations or interests. I think it's very important that we need somebody that's going to be able to stay strong and look out for the interest of all involved. That's why I got involved and volunteered my time.
Any questions from the board?
So, Anne Marie, you specifically want to be part of, when I asked the question of George, because he hadn't served on any committees in town yet, you particularly want to be involved in choosing the town administrator. Am I understanding you correctly, because of what you've seen happening?
Absolutely. I truly do. I think that we need somebody that's going to be able to be very strong, not be persuaded by one thing or the other, but be strong in the best interest of all of the people. And I think if we have somebody that does that, it's going to benefit the town itself.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So that concludes it for the citizens at large. I think we need to select 2 candidates from that pool, from George Callahan, John Daly Priscoli, Thea Dickinson Rawls, or Anne Marie Olson. And I'm open to anyone making any nominations.
You asking for one at a time?
Yes.
Well, I'll nominate George Callahan.
And is there a second on it?
So we're going to go down each one?
I'd just say make a recommendation, who you'd like to nominate. So Dick nominated George Callahan.
Well, I absolutely think John Priscoli should be involved due to being one of the major businesses in this town. I think he would, represent the business sector. Andy's a resident for six years, did you say? And he's been actively involved in other towns and has made positive differences. So I think he'd be able to review and analyze a town administrator pretty well. So
So are you nominating,
I would nominate John.
okay, is there a second on that? And I'll second it for discussion purposes. Any more discussion on it? And I agree with Helen that I think we heard him beforehand when John Deli Piscoli described the situation of expanding Edaville. He's had an opportunity to deal with the planning board, conservation, zoning, various other, the police chief, the fire chief here in town, so. And that's what a town administrator is gonna impact. He's gonna be involved with all of that, so I'll second that motion. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm gonna,
Abstain? You're gonna abstain?
yes.
Okay. So,
So
there's
you
one,
both of them, or just one?
no,
I'm
just
abstaining.
John Deli Piscoli.
Just John.
It just
Right, there was no
takes-
second on the
right.
nomination of Mr. Callahan.
So wouldn't you just vote no if you don't want John?
There was no second on George Callahan. There was a motion and a second on John Deli Piscoli.
And you vote?
So now we need one more. John Deli Piscoli is put on the screening committee.
Well, the only comment I have are people that I've seen very active. I see the history. George is has experience, however, he's just getting involved with the town. I have seen Anne Marie Olson at pretty much every single meeting. So she is probably more in tune to the going on. So it's a tough one. Thea, I think, is terrific in terms of coming off of the PTO. I think she would be great on another committee. I hope you would consider. But this is a tough decision, the second one, so.
So who are you?
All right, I will make a recommendation for Anne Marie, a motion for Anne Marie Olson.
And I'll second that. Anne Marie's been in town for 37 years, and she served in a lot of capacities. EMT, a bus driver, a troop leader. She's taught CCD,
encompassing.
and she's been pretty active all these years, so. I seconded it. Do you have any other comments?
Just that all four candidates are good quality candidates.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
absolutely. All of them are,
We have
so.
to vote.
Yeah.
I'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye. It was unanimous. So Anne Marie is also on the screening committee as well. And I'd like to thank the other two candidates for
you.
stepping forward. I think I would hope that they would take Helen's recommendation and think of getting on another committee, and George will as well. So we'll go up to the former town officials now. Dan Brazel.
Hi, my name is Dan Brassel. I live at 221 Tremont Street in Carver. I've been a resident here for 30-some-odd years. I was a former chairman of the Finance Committee for a number of years. Chairman of the Housing Authority for a number of years. In fact, I was on the committee that screened the former town manager. And I think we did okay on that end. I have 6 children. And a beautiful wife, and I think I'd like to be on the committee to screen for the next administrator. I think that's about it. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I was involved in the town for quite a while, and now I'm not doing much of anything. So this is one thing that I think I can do financially. And knowing the town, what I do know of it, I think I'd make a good addition. So,
Any questions?
sure.
You said you were on the screening committee for the last town administrator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Good choice.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
How about you, Helen?
No, and your reason for coming back is because you have nothing to do or because of all your experience?
The nothing to do was an feeble attempt at humor.
I know.
I have a lot of things to do, but I think that this would be something that I would want to do.
Appreciate you coming forward.
Yeah, I actually, when I first got involved in government, I served on the finance committee with Dan. I don't know if I drove him out of there or kept him there, but I also know that, and he forgot to mention this, but he's operated a florist shop in South Carver for a number of years, Dandelion Florist, so. Thanks for your interest in serving on this committee, and where you were a former member of the original one, that, goes a long way, so. If there's no more questions, we'll call the next candidate up, Stephen Dewhurst.
So I'm the first one who has to use notes. My memory's not as good as these other people's memory. Steve Dewhurst, 52 Forest Street. I'll just quickly summarize the letter that I sent to the board. I've lived in town 21 years. I've had a business in town for the past 20 years. I'm currently the chair of the website committee. I was a former North Carver Water District Commissioner, former member of the Finance Committee, former member of the Middle School Music Task Force. I was head coach for the high school and middle school wrestling teams. And I do things like, mow bog roads, pick up trash, stuff like that. Things in my skill set. And as part of on the website committee, I had a chance to talk to 32 different town departments to find out what their needs were, what their information needs were, how they functioned, and how the website could actually improve their functioning. So it did give me a fairly good overall view of departments in town, some of which are not highly visible, but are nevertheless very important to the functioning of our town. Prior to starting my own business, I had about 10 years in 2 different corporations where one of my job functions was to hire people, to interview people, to do review qualifications, to review their technical background, and then make recommendations. And so that experience, I think I probably interviewed maybe 40 or 50 people over that 10-year period. And we were fairly well trained. It was for 2 different corporations. One was a large US corporation, the other was a small multinational. And they had different styles of interviewing. And they're both quite reasonable ways to evaluate candidates. Some of the things that I learned in that 10 years was what not to ask people, what can get you in trouble legally, and also how to conduct an in-depth interview without actually asking any questions. Sometimes the best results are obtained when you have a long conversation with somebody and just put out hypotheticals, ask them how they solved certain problems in their past, give them a change to a problem that they had solved and see how they would react and deal with that. So that could also be of use to the committee as well. What am I forgetting, Jack?
Yeah, I think you're pretty well covered it.
Okay.
Any questions?
I will say
Comments?
that I agree with Ms. Olson very strongly that the candidate should be have a strong will or have a strong character and stand up for what's best for the town, even though it may not be personally convenient to do so. I think that's a very important quality in the candidate.
And one further comment is Steve and I served on the Finance Committee together too, so.
Yes, it's like old home day. It's Mr. Johnson will also, I hope, point out that he also served with us.
Yeah, well, I don't think I served with Paul. I think I missed those good times. Any more questions? All right, we'll go to the next candidate. Thank you, Steve. Paul Johnson.
Paul Johnson, 3 Laurie Lane. I've considered Dan's comments very carefully, and I've searched my soul, and I don't think I have his problem at all. Quite the opposite. I think this is a very important position for the town. Past service for me, as Steve alluded to, member of the Finance Committee, which I think is a significant background that everybody should have that wants to serve in town government at one time or another. Firearms Licensing Review Committee, Legal Services, RFP Committee, twice elected to the North Carver Water Commission, served 1 term as its chairman during its difficult startup time. I've been a manager in the private sector for 35 years, responsible for profit, loss, hiring, firing. So I think I know a little something about what makes somebody a good fit for a job, what skill set is good for the needs of the town of Carver at this point in time, and would like to make a contribution in the process of picking the next town administrator.
Any questions? I don't have any either, so you
Good.
did a pretty good job, I guess, answering all our questions.
Anything else comes to mind? Holla.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, we need to select 2 candidates from this list of 3.
Well, we were looking for former town officials, so I am going to make a motion to appoint both Dan and Brassel and Paul Johnson because they both clearly have the experience to serve as a town administrator and they are former town officials.
Okay, is there a second on that? I'll second it. Any comments to make? You made your comments, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was my feedback. I mean,
I'll take a vote then. All in favor?
I,
Opposed?
I'm not voting.
Abstained?
I'm
Dick abstains. So Dan Brazel and Paul Johnson are appointed to the screening committee. I just ask you to wait around a little bit because I have a charge I have to read for the appointment of and meant to mention it before John Della Priscola left, but, so the next item is Board of Selectmen member appointed to the Town Administrator Screening Committee.
my thought on that, and I don't know about you, Dick, but Jack was helping out at the beginning with the Collins Center, so I think it's just an easy flow. I mean, I don't need to serve on it. I mean, unless,
I was gonna volunteer, but, because I'm looking for a little bit of what my concerns are on our next administrator, and I am very concerned with somebody being open-minded on this whole school issue who can help us there. So that's why I was gonna volunteer to be on there. This committee, this vote, because this committee now, coming before us, is bringing, I think the Collins Center said, 3 to 5 possible candidates for 3 of us to vote on. So the next town administrator could very well be elected by 2 selectmen, 2 out of the 3 of us.
Well, I would hope with the.
It could. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it could.
Yeah,
That's the importance of that screening committee. This screening committee is very important because of the people that they're gonna bring to us. Okay, that's all
well,
I was gonna say.
primarily, the Collins Center is, they're carrying the heavy weight in doing all of this. So they're gonna be almost pre-selecting every one of those candidates that come before us, whether it's 3 or 5, every one of them is gonna be qualified to be our next town administrator. It's just a matter of us interviewing them. But I mean, for the most part, the Collins Center is gonna
And-
carry the heavy
Make a
load on
motion
this.
on that, huh?
No, but
Oh.
I would hope that any person serving on this committee is gonna be open-minded, and I don't think we should be looking at just one aspect of this town. Like you're mentioning
No, but it's a
open-minded.
philosophy, my philosophy at this point is that this school issue is extremely important. That's our biggest issue coming before us.
Yeah, no, I
So,
don't even know why that's even a discussion here, because that is all part of the component of a town administrator. I mean, we're all gonna, everyone needs to be open-minded about that. So I just,
I actually started to serve on the
we would
search
probably
committee
want,
for the town administrator last time.
I would not object to Jack
Yeah,
serving as our representative.
because I think what we wanna do is when we're narrowing down the town administrators, look for someone who has had experience working with towns in preparing to build a school. And I think those are the
That's
components.
very important.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what we wanna be looking at when we come down to the 3 to 5. That's my,
And, you know,
do you know what I mean?
the Collins Center involved, we did the profile already. You know, with the Collins Center, we know pretty much what we wanna do.
I'm
We're gonna
very
get a very
I'm
experienced,
Yeah,
very
they're
pleased
good.
with that
yeah. And we're gonna get, you know, I think that should allay some of your fears about maybe politics being
Yeah.
involved, whatever that may be. But I think that,
Yeah,
you know, what they bring forward for the committee, it's gonna be much easier for committee. The prior committee didn't have a Collins Center to work with, so they're gonna be whoever they bring forward is gonna have good experience, and in all likelihood, they're gonna have experience with the school if they've been around for a while.
Are you saying, Jack, that you don't want to serve as the selectman's representative?
I'd like to serve as a selectman's representative. So, but it's up to you to vote.
Well, I'll make a motion, because you just said
I'll
you don't
second.
mind. Yeah,
Okay, motion made and seconded to appoint
for
Jack Frady
Jack to
as.
continue on as the representative.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll vote too. Okay. And I'll be scheduling a meeting with all the candidates. Lance Kennedy's gonna be the school department's representative, and John Carter's gonna be the finance committee representative.
Lance.
So here's the charge. This is what the charge is. And you'll all get a packet from Elaine. Carver Town Administrator Search Screening Committee Appointment and Charge. The Board of Selectmen appoints a screening committee to assist in the screening of candidates for town administrator. 2, the screening committee shall work collaboratively with the staff of the Collins Center for Public Management at UMass Boston along the lines described in the Collins Center scope of work dated June 12, 2013, which was incorporated by reference. The screening committee, with the assistance of the Collins Center, shall recommend approximately 3 to 5 candidates to the Board of Selectmen as finalists for the position of town administrator. The recommendations shall be unranked, and the finalists shall be fully vetted before the screening committee makes its recommendation. In carrying out its work, the screening committee will utilize the profile approved by the Board of Selectmen to guide its work, as well as professional advice of the Collins Center staff. 5, to the extent permitted by law, the screening committee shall maintain the names and any information about candidates in strict confidence until it votes its recommendations. 6, it is the intention of the Board of Selectmen for the screening committee to function as a governmental body as that term is defined in the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law. Citizens designated to be members of the committee shall make arrangements to be officially sworn in at the town clerk's office. Did you hand out everything? Okay. I'll need one too. Approval of minutes of August 13th, August 27th.
Is Sarah coming back? Yes, she is. I'm fine with the content. I just saw a couple of typos on August 27th, that's all. Oh, was it August? Wait a second. Those are my old and my new.
You want to do these separately, or you're not ready, Helen?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with the content. There was just a couple typos that I need to give to Elaine to be fixed.
Why don't I make a motion that we accept the minutes of August
here they are.
13th? You got any
Yep.
corrections on that one?
No. No.
Not.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes of August 13th.
Motion made to accept the minutes of August 13th. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Helen.
I'm sorry. Elaine, did you insert the part where Hewens returned to the room?
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
but that was today, so that no one got it.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Are you all set, Sarah?
Yes, with that one amendment.
Oh, it had to go in here?
Right.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of August 13th as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we have the minutes of August 27th.
Yeah, I just, Elaine, I just noticed one typo on, I can show you on New England Farms hearing license, and then, Business Development Commission appointment, business. Okay? That's all. Other than that, it's fine.
Any other changes? Anyone make a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of August 27th.
Motion made. Any second on that?
Second.
Second by Helen. Any more discussion? You all set, Sarah?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Citizens' participation. You want to state your name and your address?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Nanu Patel and I own the Dave Liquor Store, 239 Tremont Street in South Carver. And I'm here about the town, they approved the license of New England Farm. And I'm sorry about the advertisement in the newspaper, but I'm not read that article anything, and I didn't know anything about the member of the town approved the license for that. And customer told me about they approved the license for the New England Farm for the beer and wine.
Mm-hmm.
And the right way I heard yesterday, and I came yesterday and talked to the clerk or whatever, and I sent my letter and issued the letter today. Because, before they opened the farm stand over there in 58, that time we don't did any complaint about anything daily business. I owned this store around maybe 6 years in the Dave Liquor Store. Initially, I do the daily business over there very good, and we have 2 employees working in my daily section. Right now, I lose the completely, wipe it out, my daily business. We don't have any employee in the daily business. We run out because they open a newsstand over there. Still, we don't worry about them. Now in town, they approve the beer and wine for the New England prom. They're gonna sell the beer and wine, and that franchise is gonna come. They're gonna buy the bulk, and we can beat that price. We can. And this, under 1 mile. And mostly, my business is the 70 to 75 to 80% for the I sell the beer and wine. Liquor business may be 80 to 20. And I depend on the beer and wine. I'm not worried about for the grocery, we're gonna lose, still they're gonna open the grocery store, we're gonna lose the business, but I'm not complaining about the grocery store. But they're gonna open the beer and wine, then they're gonna wipe it out to me. And we can afford an employee, me and my wife. I work over there in the 80 to 85 hours per week. And my wife works 60, 65. We don't have the family life. I'm not seeing my daughter.
We have a petition, we got around 50 signatures.
Only for the weekend, because I don't have time. Always I work. I work in a company, I quit a job and I work in a store. And I don't have the day off. I don't know where I have the day off. In 2 times a year, only Thanksgiving and Christmas time, I take the day off. I work hard 7 days a week. Every day, every single day. Because why? I can afford it. I can afford the employee because I don't have that much income. I have to pay my mortgage. And they're going to open that store, then I don't think I can survive over there. And that store is a long time over there. And I have some petition for the customer complaint. I think I submitted that letter too. I think you guys have for the signature for the customer too. And everybody, they say, this is not right way to do that. So I hope you guys help me out. And something to do for me. I'm appreciate for that, for the town, member of the board, selectmen, whatever. I appreciate for them to help me out.
This is a tough one. Now, what is the petition, Nanu?
Excuse me?
To reconsider.
Because I don't have time to read the newspaper, otherwise I can come right way. I'm not waste my time. Just I heard right way, then I came same time.
So in other words, it was advertised, but you
I'm
couldn't
readable.
get here because you are working.
I'm always working, me and
So
my wife,
otherwise,
always.
You had
I
nobody
see my daughter
representing you.
only weekend. In the morning, I wake up, she go to school, I go to home, sleep. So I hope you guys can help me out. I appreciate for that.
Thank you. This is a tough one. I mean, we can't do anything tonight anyway because it's
That's
citizens'
all right.
participation, so we can't even really discuss it. Just hear you right now.
Yeah, you're not on the agenda, so.
No, I don't have.
And there's a process that you follow, and that's what the town followed, and, you know, I don't know if there's any recourse of going back and changing anything at this point in time. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's what the whole process is in, and you make sure that you advertise it, so you
Right.
can have people, as many people as you can, they notified all the abutters, and so.
I thought, I used to, I have the business in town of Wareham, and they inform and they send a letter, anything new coming. That's why I don't know anything about. And all customer are asking about the chief of the fire at one time, and he said, "You don't worry, Patel. They're going to open a deli and the sandwich and something like that. They don't have the beer and wine. Nobody knows anything, and I don't know nothing about. And nobody knows. One customer told me yesterday, and then came right way. Otherwise, I don't know nothing about." So,
Mr. Chair, may I, could we ask you, Jim, do you have any thoughts on this or suggestions for us?
The difficulty is it's so late in the game.
Yeah.
That's the matter is now before the state's Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission. And, there's that and possibly a discussion with the person that you just, approved a license for.
If the matter is before the ABCC, maybe they could contact them, let them know what their feelings are on it, so you could
Mr.
probably...
Patel and I did have a brief conversation about that today. Yeah.
Right.
And I do want you to know that at the hearing, I personally asked the gentleman who owns the New England Farms if he had any issues with abutters, neighbors, had anyone brought any concerns to him, and so, at least we did make that effort.
Let's see if I can't be helpful in any way.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any more citizens' participation? Mr. Belvin?
The two things I wanted to say is, the first one, about the open meeting law, a training or whatnot. I brought that up the last time. I was wondering if there's any movement of a date or a time, or,
I don't think there has been at this point in time.
okay, because,
I've previously discussed it well before you brought it up with town council about running ethics training, open meeting law, and, recording of the minutes and stuff. And I even mentioned that, maybe he can invite other towns as well, so that we can get a good wide range of participation right here, pick up some new ideas from some adjacent communities, so. But nothing has been done at this point in time that I'm aware of.
okay, that's it, thank you.
Town administrator notes. You're all set, Jim?
I am, sir.
Wow. Selectmen notes. Start with you, Helen, or start with you, Sarah?
Just want to thank the PAC, PAC 63 for having a wonderful ceremony today and donating the granite stone for the September 11th spruce tree that the Angley family had donated. It was a beautiful ceremony, and thank you to all the parents that worked with the Cub Scouts to put that together. And thank you for all the volunteers that came forward tonight for the town administrative screening committee, and I hope those who weren't chosen this time around will consider joining other committees, because everyone was very well qualified. It was a difficult decision. And that's it.
Okay, how about you, Dick?
Well, I wanted to mention the YPAC program that was Saturday at the Benjamin Ellis School. It was in the Benjamin Ellis School, which is newly renovated by Clark Riffus. The thing I wanted to mention too, as I said earlier, the Doreen Merritt Community Fund donated $25,000 to the program for the kids.
It's amazing.
So that is an amazing thing. Now, as I said, the Doreen Merritt Community Fund raises a large part of their funds at the annual Edaville Railroad Run in November, which will be coming up this fall. So I said a vote of thanks also needs to go out to the Edaville Railroad for hosting this event. Donna Merritt and the Merritt family have been unbelievably generous in this gift to the YPAC. That was a very important issue for me, I thought, to bring out tonight. I have something else here that I'd like to mention. I would like to place an item on the agenda for the Selectmen's meeting on September 24th, 2013. A discussion and possible vote to add to the selectmen's agenda policy. I'm saying that a selectman should not be able, or should be able to place an agenda item on the selectmen's meeting agenda without having it deleted by the chair or the vice chair. That's why I would like it on the agenda for next meeting, for discussion. I didn't want to go in further discussion because then I think I'm in violation. of
Yeah,
open
we don't need
meeting law.
another
Right.
complaint.
So all I wanted to do was mention why I wanted to do it.
So should we
Anything
be
else,
able
Dick?
to
That's it.
put
Well,
some,
I think
I
Elaine's
did know,
taking
let
it
me,
down.
that ceremony tonight out there was great.
Yeah.
To watch these little guys marching in, it was great. And I do want to thank the Cub Scouts for that, and the Angleys, and selectmen and everybody involved, citizens.
Okay. How about you, Sarah?
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to also mention the Young People's Alliance of Carver open house event that was held on this past Saturday. We really didn't know, I participated in it as just an ordinary citizen, as Dick, and we really didn't know what kind of turnout we would get. We were absolutely amazed and just floored by the number of people that were there. By the time the speeches were over, I went back down into the arts and crafts room. I was showing the kids some arts. I don't think I got a break for 3 hours straight. It was terrific. We had children, parents, grandparents, seniors who don't have grandparents in town, willing to volunteer. We're here. What's it all about? The scouts, some of the scouts volunteered to help us out, and they were terrific. And just the interest in this program, it makes it very clear it's something Carver really needs. And we just want to thank everybody who came, everyone who participated, everyone who said, when are you going to open? What can we do next time? We're hoping, or the group is hoping to have a fundraiser, I believe November 2nd, but that's not set in stone yet. But this is just a great big thank you to Carver from the Young People's Alliance of Carver.
You all set?
Yep. Thank you.
Thursday, Plymouth County Advisory Board and appointed member is meeting. I'll get back to the board and let them know about some of the decisions we made. Also, Sarah and Helen and I attended MA meeting for selectmen last year, and it's coming up again this year, Saturday, October 5th. If anyone wants to go, it doesn't cost us any money. The items on the agenda, and this is very timely, performance evaluation of a town manager or administrator, not you, Jim, of course, but it's
I'll
something
run
for us
before
to-
you start.
Something for us to incorporate into our discussions on the screening committee. Sustainable water management, managing town infrastructure and assets, and how actions on Capitol Hill and Beacon Hill affect your community. I also have in here, as I did the last meeting, open meeting law complaints resolved. This office received 6 complaints from Robert Belbin dated April 29, 2013. The complaints alleged the Carver Zoning Board of Appeals violated the open meeting law, and basically, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, it's like 5 pages long. Following our review, we find that the notice for the board's March 14, 2013 meeting was sufficiently specific. That was one of the complaints. The complainant did not have the right to participate in the board's March 2013 meeting, and the board's December 12th, January 10th, and February 14 meeting was sufficiently detailed. However, we did find that the chair violated the open meeting law by failing to inform the attendees that the March 14, 2013 meeting was being recorded. The violation was de minimis, though, as the complainant drew substantial attention to the fact that he was recording, and those in attendance were aware that he was doing so. And then, in conclusion, we find that the board's March 14th meeting was sufficiently specific, and goes on, and It says, "We therefore order no further relief," so we were absolved of all 6 complaints. And last week I read about being absolved of 2 complaints, so I think we're getting a pretty good track record on this. I think the training that we went through a year or so ago was maybe starting to pay off a little bit, so. I'd also like to mention that, the Merit, Foundation there, that several years ago, we didn't have the money to pay for the swimming program, and they stepped forward and donated $10,000 that paid for it, I think, for, I believe, 2 years, at no cost to the taxpayers, so that their children could learn how to swim. And one more further thing is, on the little ceremony that we had out front, we were all kidding with each other because we couldn't get a singer, and we were trying to pick on each other about one of us singing, and some little Cub Scout stepped forward and
Yeah.
saying America the Beautiful, so I don't have his name, but it was pretty
We're
good.
going to get it.
And then in conclusion, I'd like to thank all the people that stepped forward to work on the screening committee. It was a difficult choice, but, and I would hope that those people that weren't picked would get involved in some other way with the town. You have executive session for negotiations for contract status of police, DPW, and clerical and supervisory. Does anyone have our, the motion that needs to be made?
Chair, if I may, could you put the supervisory discussion at the end so I can recuse
Okay,
myself?
yep.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:36 into executive session to discuss the 4 negotiations with non-union personnel for contract status of police, DPW, clerical and supervisory at 9:10, not to return to open session. Roll call vote. Aye, Helen.
Aye, Dick Ward.
Hi, Jack Freeney. I just want to note that Sarah will be recusing herself from the supervisory union. It's the last item on the agenda, so just, might want to note that in the minutes.